I'm here to pose that question. You know, I was thinking about this a little bit because I'm noticing a trend.
Yes.
You know, and it's funny. I feel like music, specifically rap, goes through this cycle every 5 to 6, 7 years, however you want to slice it, where people surrounding the genre, the rappers included, the producers included, the executives, the fans, everyone starts to mumble certain lines. And I'm starting to hear people say, yo, everybody sounding the same.
Again.
Everybody sounding the same.
They're saying it again.
And it's happening, guys. Recently, Tyler, the Creator, was sitting down. He did an interview, and he said just that. He was saying, yo, there's a lot of dudes are sounding the same. He said, yo, back then in the blog era, and he gave just examples. He was saying, yo, Wale sounded completely different from a Meek. Meek sounded completely different from a J. Cole. J. Cole sounded completely different from a Kendrick and Drake. And he listed so many artists where it's like there were clear distinctions in artistry. Where if you were to really prop up the top dudes, you would say, okay, that person clearly has their own little lane. Yeah. Whereas now it's not so much. The line is a little bit more blurred. Russ recently, again, he goes viral all the time talking about like rapping, what rappers need to stop doing and what they do need to do. He said, yo, rappers, y'all need to stop imitating Wayne. Yo, everybody want to act like Wayne. Yo, y'all need to stop acting like Wayne. I responded to him and basically said, yeah, I mean, everybody tried to emulate Wayne, but they couldn't emulate his rapping.
For sure.
They tried to look. And so even from an aesthetic standpoint, everybody looks the same. The rappers are sounding the same. And I think that at the end of the day, we're here again to pose this question. Do you believe rap needs a reset in 2024, or are these guys just sounding old and grumpy? Which one is it?
Old and grumpy. I'm going to listen.
Which one is it, man?
People are going to get angry. I know people always get angry with everything I say because they just like to get angry. But I'm going to make a comment that I feel, particularly in 2024, needs to be said. All right? We just talked about Lil Yachty, right?
Yep.
If, you know, what does Lil Yachty sound like? Lil Yachty sounds like Playboi Carti. Everybody sounds like Playboi Carti, right? Have y'all been listening to the bodies of work Lil Yachty has been coming out with lately? It's fantastic. It's better than a lot of the stuff people were coming out with back in the day. Experimental. And then you look at some of these other guys, right? You look at that Mexican OT, right? It was like a guy like him. Unique. Completely different. What he's doing is fire. Like, but y'all don't care about him, right? Yeah, he's not on radio. You don't care about him. Denzel Curry. Denzel Curry has dropped probably last 3 albums, all fire. I'm talking last 3 albums are more quality than a lot of the albums that you guys prop up and think are so great.
Talk.
Right?
Denzel's that guy.
Denzel Curry. JID. How many people I got to keep going? JID. Right? Dropping fantastic albums. Right? Mm-hmm. Even down to a guy like I'm not saying the album's great, but like down to a guy like Cash Cobain. That's a completely unique sound that he's playing with. So the idea that they're not unique, it's just the ones that we tend to hear in the club. Yeah, every time I go to the club, I'm hearing the same people. They sound the same all the time. Destroy Lonely and Playboi Carti, all that stuff. Yeah. Or the people that is on TikTok. Yeah. Hell yeah. TikTok. Yeah, they all sound the same in TikTok. But if you're actually tapped in, like I am, a lot of these guys are actually, these young dudes are pushing the envelope with their art, with their artistry, man. Even Kenny Mason. Kenny Mason, his album, he pushed the envelope. So I'm not necessarily rolling with the idea that everybody sounds the same. But one idea I can roll with is that there's no more superstars in hip hop. You know, it's almost like, I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, remember back in the day, like sports had superstars? Like, I wasn't never a guy that watched baseball, but I knew Ken Griffey Jr. I knew Cal Ripken Jr. These days, who's baseball superstars that, like, even if you don't watch the sports, you know? Name me Aaron Judge.
In baseball right now?
Yeah, in baseball right now. Aaron Judge, I guess.
What's my man's name? He was one, but low-key one. What's my name?
Trout
was
Trout.
one. Mike Trout was one.
I mean, I guess, obviously, Ohtani, but, like,
Of course, Ohtani.
There's not a lot of superstars in sports like there used to be. NBA always gonna have superstars, but like NFL, even in the NFL, to a standpoint, Jordan Love, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, young quarterback, but I wouldn't call him a superstar. Brock Purdy, he's not a superstar, and I think hip hop is suffering from that same thing where ain't no more superstars, yo. You know, like the idea of a young super, that's done. Like we have to move on from the idea that our rappers are going to be doing crazy numbers. They're going to be iconic superstars, dropping bodies of work that everybody's going to love. A lot of these rappers these days are acquired taste rappers. So you have to literally seek out their music to appreciate it. And so there you go. I mean, that's why I'm not quite rolling with it.
No, listen, I didn't ask that question for me to lead you one way or the other. Genuinely, I think it's an interesting question, and I can see both sides, right? Because on one hand, I totally agree with every word that you just uttered, specifically the part about the superstars or lack thereof, right? Because, man, we've had this convo before on the podcast and off the podcast. The world is flattened because of the internet, right? The rap music specifically has evolved so much that there are now subgenres in every possible sound that you could want. Yep. And when you go on Spotify or you go on these streaming platforms to go and consume these music, there are now curated lists for every one of these genres where you could argue there's a top 5 in rage. Who are the top 5 rage rappers? Who are the top 5 boom bap rappers? Who are the top 5 trap rappers? Like, that's a legit conversation that I don't think people are having enough. Nope. Right? Like, we trying to compare Future to J. Cole. Like, it don't work that way. I'm sorry. Hip hop is big enough to where that don't make sense anymore. Yes. Right? And so I say all of that to say, while that would technically disqualify and make me disagree with Tyler, the Creator, and all these other people, but I'm kind of rolling with them. Right?
Ooh, okay.
I'll tell you why I'm rolling with them, right? I think at the end of the day, it does go back to the superstar aspect that you did talk about it. You just mentioned it. Back then in the blog era and before, blog era meaning like the internet just popped up. If you guys don't know what the hell that means, we talking about Two Dope Boys and all these. You could argue RGM is a blog, right? Back then, before the internet was popping, blogs had to certify and stand on these artists and be like, this is the next one. And so I think the curation of the fan bases was a little bit more potent when it came to like holding an artist up and saying he's the next one. It was a little bit more like meaningful in the way the torch was handled, in my opinion. So, but whereas now the barrier for entry to rap is literally non-existent. You could literally pop up today. You could be a lawnmower one day, and tomorrow you're a international superstar doing tours because one of your songs went viral on TikTok. Not saying that there's anything wrong with somebody who has that approach or lane, but I'm just saying like there is something to curating a fan base. As opposed to the way artists are blowing up these days. So I do think in the era that we're in with TikTok and people just blowing up from like overnight successes for the most part. I'm not saying everybody applies to this, but for the most part, that is a big thing now. That does create a disconnect, in my opinion. I agree. In the way we cover these artists, the history we have with these artists. Do we even know anything about half the artists that's popping now? No. And I think that's the problem. All them artists that I think Tyler, the people who were quote unquote superstars of the past, the last generation, I think there's an intimate knowledge of a lot of these dudes past. Where they from? What got them in the music? We know a little bit more about them dudes. Just saying, I feel like that's the part that's a bit missing these days, and I think that's where the disconnect comes from.
I hate to
if you understand where I'm coming from.
I hate to open up this can of worms. Because this is something that we argue about all the time.
Let's wrap it up.
I'm going to wrap up, but I have to say this.
Go ahead.
That's why I always have an issue when people like you say, oh, man, hip-hop don't need tastemakers. They do need tastemakers.
Wait, excuse me? I've never. Yeah. I'm the tastemaker king. I stay talking about tastemakers.
I'm saying the importance of taste. I've always said the importance of taste. Like, tastemakers.
But you ain't talking to me because I've been pro tastemaker.
Tastemakers are needed. Like, one of the reasons a lot of these artists aren't superstars is because we don't have platforms like 106 in Park, and we don't have platforms like MTV to tell us, TRL to tell us this is the next big wave. We're just sitting there waiting for our ears to tell us that I like this person. But back in the day, they were like, yo, check out Denzel Curry. Like, he has this song that we like. Nobody's going to force feed it into your ears. You have to seek it out. Mm-hmm. So it's like,
and again, like I said, I'm pro tastemaker. Mm-hmm. I just want to be clear,
but maybe I'm bad on myself. But maybe I was.
But it's just, no. You're the one who was like, you were mocking me talking about. I'm the one who was like, bro. I was the one talking about, we got to bring tastemakers back. Yada yada. And you're like, man, F tastemakers. Da 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 da. At the end of the day, here's the thing. There's a double-edged sword with tastemakers, right? Mm-hmm. It's a double-edged sword, with how things are today, and also with tastemakers. Yeah. On one end, tastemakers are gatekeepers, right? And you can argue that that's a flawed model because
that's the word, gatekeepers. That's what I meant to say.
Gatekeepers are tastemakers.
Yes.
And so I'm actually pro gatekeepers as tastemakers. Yeah. I'm pro that.
We need gatekeepers. I mean, for I think the hip hop game needs gatekeepers.
But then again, when the internet is put in the power of the people's hands, there's some empowerment that comes with people being able to blow up overnight, right?
You put the power. Let me tell you, and this is probably gonna make people mad. When you put the power in people's hands, they get it wrong a lot. This person's tight. Do you know how long people have been telling me how tight Boss Man D-Lo is? And I'm just like, he's different. He's unique. But I personally don't get it. But based on the numbers, this guy's a big deal. Based on Yeat's numbers, he's a big deal. And and essentially that's what people are going off of, numbers and what they're listening to and who's saying is tight online, as opposed to maybe tastemakers and gatekeepers actually coming out and telling you this is why this person is good. But I'm
voting for gatekeepers and tastemakers. I'm sorry,
we're old.
I'm part of that crew. I ain't gonna hold you.
Retire this podcast.
I ain't gonna hold you, bro.
We're getting old. We're us saying we need gatekeepers.
That shit sounds hell. But that's the thing. Shout out to Tyler, man. 'Cause I like when people drive these discussions. Yeah. Boo, real quick, I was gonna say Boo, Akon's brother. Yeah. He's a senior executive, whatever, at Universal or whatever label he's at. Yep. He literally called Tyler the Creator old. Yeah. That's when I knew, damn, I'm old, bro. If they calling Tyler an old head. What?
Listen to the full episode. Link below.